Hey, what's going on, everybody? Today, I just wanted to show you XRP and what I think is happening here on this update. So, if you look back in October, right here, you could see a 9 buy. And basically, what a 9 buy is, it's an indicator that lets you know when to buy, when to sell. But obviously, you don't follow it blindly. You got to use it with other indicators. You also got to know where you are in the phases or in the Elliott wave. So, for example, if you have a 9 buy on the bottom of a fourth wave, then you have to know that you probably only have one more wave. Versus if you had a 9 buy on the bottom of an ABC, you know you have potential 5 waves of room to go. So in this case, you had a 9 buy pretty much on the bottom here. And what happened was the price started the count. So it started to go up, wave 1, wave 2, right? And then we went all the way up into wave 3. And look what happened at the top of wave 3. We had a 9 sell, right? But if you're using it blindly, you can say, okay, there's a 9 sell, it's over. But using it with Elliott wave, you can kind of figure out, wait a minute, I still have another wave to go, right? So basically, you had a 9 sell, and it was a perfect 9 sell because you had this sort of rejection, right, off the high, so off the resistance. And you could see this 9 sell printed. I didn't put these there, the indicator did, these red dots, right? So what happened was the price pulled back into the bull market support band. And that's another indicator I use with it. And then what happened? You had a green 1 engulfing candle, but better yet, you had a green 2 going above a green 1, and then you had a green 3 going above a green 2, going above the red dots or above the 9 sell, which then activated sort of a new, or I shouldn't say new count, but a new another upwards wave, right? And then we landed on another 9 sell. And this 9 sell called the top pretty much perfectly. If you disregard this little scam wick right here where it was like a liquidity trap, right? But basically this candle right here called the top back here. So if I zoom out, you could see what I'm talking about. So here we go, right? And it, like I said, it doesn't always call the top or the bottom or whatever, but that's why you use other indicators. But in this case, it's been following it pretty well. It's on a roll. So we had a 9 sell right here. You can see it's red, and then the green is a 9 buy. And we pulled all the way back to the bull market support band. But look, we didn't get a 9 coming down. Instead, we landed on the bull market support band, which is, to me, almost just as good, right? It would have been nice if you had a 9 buy with the bull market support band, but then look what happened. We came up, right? And we had another 9 sell. And this 9 sell called the top again, but not the top of the top, but the top of the retracement. So here's your run up, called the 9, the top. You pulled back, then you went into a retracement. This 9 sell called the top of the retracement. Then what happened? Then the price started dumping, right? It started going down again. It basically, this 9 sell said, hey, be cautious, right? It doesn't mean sell all your XRP, right? That's the last thing. I'm just saying, use traders who use this, but also as an investor, as a hodler, I like to use it because it kind of guides me on when to dollar cost average, right? Like a lot of people like to dollar cost average when you get a big breakout. But for me, I like to dollar cost average anytime we have a 9 buy, because the buy often says, hey, we're potentially close or near a bottom or somewhere in the vicinity of a bottom, right? And another place I like to dollar cost average is on top of the bull market support band. So anyways, as we continue on, right, there's your 9 here, called the top. Then we started going to the downside. And now here we are today, ladies and gentlemen, and look at this. We have a 9 buy. Now, before you go out and buy, there's things you got to know about this 9 buy. First of all, it's the first one, right? So look what happened here. For example, it took 1 9 sell, and then it took another 9 sell. So it took 2 9s for the price to stop and reverse. So just keep that in mind, right? So, and then you get into the whole thing about sequential 13, like you get a double 9 and then it turns into a sequential 13. I don't really go in depth on that far, but you can use it. Again, go to Google and you can learn all about the indicator. I think it's pretty simple to use and easy, but it could get complex depending how you use it. But anyways, we have a 9 buy right now, and it's pretty nice. It's a pretty orderly 9. You could see here you have a 1, a 2, a 1, but then it flipped back. So the candles have to sort of go in a sequential count in order for it to, continue going down the count in order to get that 9. It's pretty hard to get a 9 actually. So when you get one, especially on the high time frames, especially like the weekly chart, right? If you get a 9 buy on the weekly, you bet your bottom dollar I'm buying that dip, or even better, the 2-week or the monthly, right? But even on the daily you can. But if you go to like the 10-minute chart, there's 9s all over the place, and it's just kind of erratic, right? Short-term price trading. But for most of us, we're hodling for the bigger cycle, for the bigger swing. And a daily 9 doesn't really mean much, but if dollar cost averaging is a thing, then it's probably a good idea to maybe consider it. Now, this channel is not financial advice. I have no idea what's happening here. Actually, I take that back. I do know what's happening, but I can't tell you exactly what to do here. At the same time, there is a good chance that this thing could be potentially almost over. And the reason why, right? So now we got the sequential out of the way, right? We have a 9 buy. So what else can give us confluence that this thing is potentially done with? Well, I've often thought that this is some type of leading diagonal here. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? And then that diagonal is corrected by an A, B, and now we're working on C. So if that's the case, then we want to know, when is the C wave finished, right? When is the C wave finished? And if you look here, you sort of need 5 waves, right? Depending how you count the 5 waves, you could say this would be 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And you could say, yeah, it's done, and that could be the case. But for me, this A wave ends here. The B wave ends here. But to me, the C wave at least needs, potentially, right? It doesn't have to. It could be a flat pattern where it doesn't have to break, right? But oftentimes, an A, B, C breaks these lows before it likes to go, right? So what could potentially happen here? And these are just ideas. So basically, idea number 1, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? Let me take all that off first. And then before I do that, interestingly enough, if I go to the 3-day chart, we also have a 9. Or yesterday was the 9. But you can see this 1 is trading below the 9, which is not what you really want to see. Let's see what the 2-day chart says. So the 2-day chart, we're on a 6. Okay, let's see what the weekly chart says. Well, look at that. The weekly chart, we're on a 7. So 8, 9, right? We have 2 more weeks to go plus the 3 days we're here. So if we can continue, so that actually that's what I would like. So what I would like to see happen is, because the weekly always triumphs the smaller time frames, right? So you have a 7 here. If we can get another candle trading below, which would be an 8, and then sort of like a doji candle, right, with a wick. There we go. So something like that, right? That would be sort of kind of what I would like to see happen, because then, you have a perfect count to the downside. So next week we have an 8, a red trading below the 7, and then the 9 trading below the 8, but then also in a doji type or a dragonfly type of candle, right? Where you sort of get this wick to the downside, wick to the upside, kind of like this, a doji candle, right? Something like this. So you could see this number 4 here. We went up and it sort of, boom, it got rejected. And yeah, like a dragonfly doji or something that says, hey, or even better, a bullish hammer. So if you don't know the different types of candle patterns, just again, go to Google, type in candlestick patterns, and it'll, because a candle will tell you a lot of information. A lot of people, overlook the shape of a candle, right? So a candlestick trading, tells you a lot. So, like, I don't really want to get into that right now, but there's a lot of different candlestick patterns that are very useful. But anyway, we have a scenario here that I'm looking at, which would be really cool. And then what that also does, right, if we can get that 9 buy right here, so maybe I should change that to green, since it is I'll change that to green. There you go. So if we get that 9 buy, then that, my friends, would be my sort of chance to go even heavier dollar cost averaging, right? Because I did nibble a little bit on the daily chart, because we do have a 9 buy, and then also you can see the 7 right here sort of rejected off, and then you can see this 8, right? So this 8 candle was sort of an indecision candle, and now you have this 9 sort of, it looks like it's kind of, flattening out in here, right? So we'll see what happens. I don't know if this is the absolute bottom. Like I said, I hope it's not. So in the event that it's not, we could still get a bounce, right? Because again, nothing falls in a straight line. So if this is a reversal point or a bounce, we can get a bounce to the upside and then a continuation to the downside until we get to this, hopefully this weekly 9 candle in here, right? And you can say, well, how does all this happen if Bitcoin potentially is topping out? Well, again, go back and watch my previous video, because that video explains in depth on how, and basically the environment needed in order for XRP or any coin to take off. And a lot of that has to do with Bitcoin running up first, which it did, and then sort of consolidating or ranging, which it's doing now, right? It hasn't found the bottom of the range yet. We're still going down. So if I look at the price of Bitcoin, it too is also on a 9 buy, right? I don't really like this one because it's so soon. I mean, if you look at this run up here, right, you could see all of this was one way to the upside. And look at this little tiny thing, people are freaking out. Like, I don't understand it, right? I mean, look how big this is. And then once Bitcoin gets this little tiny correction, which it is so far, then people start to freak out. But again, Bitcoin deserves to take a breath. It's ran already quite a while, so it needs to calm down and drink some water and cool off, right? And that's what it's doing. And even though it dumped from, what was that, almost 50K, 49K, all the way down to so that was a $10,000 drop, so about a 21% move, and that is pretty significant, right? But if you look at the bigger picture, it doesn't look all that bad. But here's the most important part. Bitcoin has a lot of wiggle room. Like I've been saying, it has the bull market support band, which I would really hope for the price to continue to go down so that I can test it. Number two, it has the green dots, which is the setup trend. Number three, it has this backtest zone. So you have all of these areas, 1, 2, 3, all of these areas coming to a head, interconnecting, crossing each other, right? So it sets up like this trifecta of a hopeful support coming through. Now, if Bitcoin just blasts right through it, comes up, tested as resistance, then yeah, now you can start to say, okay, this is going too fast. We need to zoom out and look at the bigger picture. In which case, if that happens, then I'm looking at this, right? The top of this to be back tested, right? About there, right? So that range right in here. So hopefully, if the price does fly down here, we can get a bounce out of here because it'll be then back testing the top of this, right? So we broke out of this range right in here, this range we've been in for a long time. I think that was like 6 months. We broke out of that range, but we never came down to back test the range. So if we come all the way back down to 30K, it's still considered bullish. So that's how much wiggle room Bitcoin has. It has a lot of wiggle room. So what can then happen there is we can start to range in this bigger range, right? Going down, then up, then back down, then up, right? If that's the case. If that's the case, then that means Bitcoin is obviously ranging. And that's sort of the environment needed for the altcoins to run up. Because first, Bitcoin needs to run. So from here, from the beginning of 2023 all the way to the end of 2024, up, right? So now it's coming down, right? I don't know if it's going to stop at the bull market support band right here, or come all the way down to there. But basically, this is your wiggle room in here for the price to find its footing, right? But for now, we're just, creeping our way down. So if we do start to range in here like this, just like we did right here, and just like we did right here, right? If we start to, range, breakout, range, breakout, range, right? As we come down, obviously the market is, red and going down with it. But then once we find support and we oscillate back up, this move back to the upside could cause, like all the other altcoins, not all of them, but a good chunk of them to blast off, right, in a big way. And a good example is back up here. You could see this was the previous bull run, and we're just running. And then once we get up here, this was the top. This was the very top, right? And if you look closely, what happened at the top? We oscillate down, oscillate up, down, up, right? And until it finally breaks down, right? But when did the altcoins really start to run? A lot of people have this misconception where altcoins run with Bitcoin, like starting from here, they run together. And sometimes that's true, but a lot of times they run once Bitcoin goes into its distribution phase. And that could be what's happening now. So for example, if I put up like the price of THETA, you can see, right? Where did THETA really start to run? It started to run right here. Right there. That's when it really started to run. But where was Bitcoin at that time? It already stopped. It already topped out. It already was over with, right? So you could see the whole Bitcoin bull run was from here all the way up here. And then once we got here, now it's over. It's done. It's done. The Bitcoin bull run is done. But look at the price of THETA. THETA was just getting started. So that's what I'm saying. And this goes, if you want more of this, go back to my previous video. I go in depth on how this works, but just, to touch on it briefly, I'm talking about it now. And basically, let me zoom in here, take all that off. You can really see this is where Bitcoin finished, right in here. And then as it oscillated to the upside, that's when it pumped. As it oscillated to the downside, right, as it was going down, it was still, had a little correction, but it still pumped to the upside. And it only took a couple weeks, right, for it to completely catch up, right? Because you can see right here, look at this. It's just flat. But as this was flat, Bitcoin was steadily going up, flat, up, flat. And then once it topped out, that's when it ripped and flew to the upside. Okay, so now we understand that that's the environment needed. Number one, we have to run up. Number two, we have to chill out and, go sideways. So if we go back over here, that could potentially be what's happening here. So if I put this on here and say, hey, we're going to range just like we did here and just like we did here. And as we come down, we're coming down. But then if we oscillate back to the upside, we can get a big pump to the upside, and then we oscillate back down, we get a little pullback. Oscillate back up, we get another big pump until we finally meet up with each other, right? Because again, it's the same story. Bitcoin is going higher, and then THETA is going flat, right? So Bitcoin's going higher, THETA's going flat. Then once Bitcoin chills out, that's when THETA can catch up. But not just THETA, XRP too. So let me put on XRP, since this is an XRP video. THETA is a better example at explaining it, because XRP is in a different, XRP has, the chart looks different than any other coin out there, if you ask me. So again, here's XRP. And if we start to range up in here, so we're coming down, obviously we're coming down. But then once we bounce off the bull market support band, or worst case scenario, we come down and we back test 31K, we come all the way down here, eventually, whether it's the bull market support band or 31K, I believe we are going to get a big, strong bounce, at least a retracement. Now we can come up and break the high, right? Or what's more conservative or even more potentially realistic is just to come up into a retracement. So we're oscillating down, coming down. And then here's the biggest part. When we oscillate back up, that's when XRP can catch up and break out and to go to like $2 plus, right? Or at least between $1 and $2, right? Because again, if this is a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then we have an A, B, C, right? Maybe C's not finished yet. Like I said, C should come down potentially and break this low. So A, B, C, we get way down here, and then as Bitcoin's stopping at 31K, or hopefully it stops at the bull market support band, then once it stops, because again, nothing goes down in a straight line. Bitcoin's not going to do that. It's going to stop. It's going to go back up, right? It's going to stop. It's going to go back up. It's got to do, if this is the top, there should be some type of distribution range, right? So as Bitcoin goes back up, that's when we can get a big pump. As it comes back down, that's when we can get a pullback. As it comes back up again, that's when we can get another big breakout. And then once Bitcoin finally says, okay, I'm done, and we break down, that's when XRP breaks down too. But again, the whole moral of the story is Bitcoin goes up, alts go sideways. Bitcoin goes into distribution, alts catch up. Bitcoin goes into distribution, people rotate their Bitcoin into low value alts, thus creating the alt to then catch up back to the vicinity of where Bitcoin is. So hopefully that made sense to you. But then you could say, well, wait a minute. Bitcoin never broke out into a new all-time high. Last time, in order for the environment to be completed, Bitcoin broke out into a new all-time high. Yes, that's true. But here's the thing. XRP never broke out into its bull run. XRP has only had one bull run in its entire history, and XRP is one of the oldest coins out there. XRP has the biggest base in crypto history. XRP already had its phases complete. So for example, if you look at it in phases, let me put that to regular here. If you look at them in phases, actually, let me do this. To me, the phases are already complete, which is, and basically the argument here is Bitcoin did not break out into a new all-time high. Instead, it's going into a retracement. So how can the altcoin break out? Well, maybe it doesn't break out of this. Maybe it doesn't even break out of this. But at least we can get a big pump in here, right? And that pump can come from Bitcoin rotating itself into the altcoins. Because again, when you look at it from a phase perspective, you have a rise, you have a crash, you have a retracement, you have reaccumulation, you have sideways, right? And eventually what happens after that? You go. And that's usually what happens. I mean, you can see down here, we have a rise, crash, retrace, reaccumulation, sideways, blast off. So same thing. Rise, crash, retrace, reaccumulation, sideways. What happens next? Potentially a blast off. So, number one, XRP is in a position for itself to break out in a big way. Number two, Bitcoin is in a position for itself to go into a range or distribution. Number three, the environment needed for XRP to break out is, like I've been saying, Bitcoin being in that ranging situation. So there's your range, and then again another range. And as Bitcoin comes down, right, we see XRP going down. But then if we start to oscillate down, oscillate back up, down, up, right, down, as we oscillate up, right, the up phases. So these phases right in here, this phase, the up phase, the up phase. So those phases are some of the most bullish times potentially for altcoins. So again, Bitcoin doesn't need to be rampaging to the upside, because if that occurs, then what happens with alts? They just go flat. But then once Bitcoin chills out, that's when they catch up. So that's sort of my main message here. Am I going to be right? I have no idea. I don't know if this is going to play out, but what I do know is what happened last time. And what happened last time was a lot of the altcoins already started going up. The difference, you're right, this was a full-fledged bull run. This is only just a retracement. But if Bitcoin had a retracement, then the altcoins should have a retracement as well, right? So if you look at the price of THETA, it's still, to me, you have a bull, you have a rise, a crash. You need a retracement. You need to come up here into a retracement, especially if you've been going flat for a long time, right? It's building a bottom. So here's your bull market, here's your bear market, and here is your floor, your bottom. It's trying to find a bottom, trying to find a bottom, trying to find a bottom. So now it's found a bottom. You have this big pump to the upside. You have a pullback to the bull market support band. What comes next? Another big pump, hopefully and potentially, right? So yeah, we'll see what happens. I don't know if it's going to play out, but again, let's look at XRP. Pull up the sequential. We do have a 9 buy, which doesn't really mean much. So looking at the weekly chart on Bitcoin, I want to see a 9 buy coming on the weekly chart. But if you go to the Bitstamp chart, right, or even the futures has a 7, right? The crypto chart has a 7. But if you go to, and the Bybit has also a 7. But if you go to the Bitstamp chart, it appears, there it is. It appears to be on a 9. So that's definitely interesting, right? I didn't even realize that. Look at that. Now all the other charts are on a 7. The Bitstamp chart is on a 9 buy. So that's interesting. Now I'm not too sure about that, right? You could see this base here, right? You could see this impulse to the upside, and then you could sort of see this correction to the downside, kind of like this awkward looking bull flag here. So maybe not. So going back, let's go here to the, yeah, here's the 7, right? So 8, and then we get a 9. So if that's the case, we have between now and another 2 weeks, right, to find a proper bottom. So basically my grand thesis, my hope, right, my optimistic viewpoint is this is number 1. Look at this, by the way. Look at that. The weekly 9 called the exact top. Not quite, but the top of the XRP bull run. Check that out. Thought that was interesting. But anyways, my sort of grand thesis here is that this is in a contracting triangle. So let me put that there. Let me actually go, I'll keep it there. Something like that, right? And this would be an A, a B, a C. We have 1, 2, 3, so that's a D. Now D, you can argue, well, it didn't come all the way back up here, and that's true, it didn't. Maybe D's not finished yet, or maybe it is. But anyways, and now you have E right down in here. So that's bullish point number one, and that's the same thing here, right? You have an A, B, C, D, E. So there you go. That's bullish case number one. Bullish case number two, you have a rise, crash, retrace, reaccumulation, sideways blast off. Same thing potentially happening here. You have a rise, crash, retrace, reaccumulation, sideways blast off. So that's 2 points. The third point is this could potentially be in confluent with the other two. The third one could be, this is a diagonal where you have a 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, which requires an A, B, and a C. So I don't know where C finishes at, right? On the Bitstamp chart, you have a weekly 9, but all the other ones say no, right? So I'm going to go with the many, not the few. So I'm going to say, yeah, we got another 2 weeks to go to get that 9 buy. Now, if it lands on a 9 buy, it doesn't instantly go up, right? It can consolidate for a month or so before it finally gets triggered, right? So we land here, and then at that point, when we come down, that's when Bitcoin starts to oscillate back to the upside in its range, right? Which leads me to my fourth reason why. So if we get that big breakout, and then even, let's say this is in D, let's say this is D, and then we go up like that. So then what I can do is I can label this D over here, and then put E right there, which would be totally fine, right? And either way, I'm fine with it. So again, when Bitcoin's coming down, that's what we're doing now. We're coming down. As Bitcoin oscillates to the upside, hopefully we can get that pump to the upside. Then Bitcoin oscillates back to the downside, then XRP can have this correction to the downside. Then once Bitcoin finally does its 1 or 2 more oscillations back up, that's when we can hopefully get that big breakout and catch up to Bitcoin. Because again, Bitcoin is way up here, right? Bitcoin broke out into a new all-time high. It crashed, right? And then it went into its retracement. So XRP needs to catch up at some point. You would think, hopefully, right? Maybe, maybe not. But that's just sort of the idea. Now you can say, how the heck does XRP break out into a new all-time high if Bitcoin didn't? Well, Bitcoin already did right here. But XRP didn't. So it still has to catch up. Right? It still has to catch up. Bitcoin never broke, XRP never broke out into a new all-time high. Bitcoin already broke out into a new all-time high. It already had a crash, and it already had a retracement. During that whole time, XRP is still underneath its all-time high, waiting for the moment we've all been waiting for, right? Which is to get this big breakout. So again, if that's the case, and if Bitcoin needs a fresh new all-time high, if that's the case, then that's the case, right? But in order for XRP to break out, maybe Bitcoin needs a new all-time high. But if Bitcoin doesn't have a new all-time high and it goes into this distribution in this retracement, then that could be an indicator where we have where we have another retracement, right? So we have this pump, this dump, and now we're going into another retracement. So maybe we get up to $1.60, Maybe we get up to $1, between $1.30 and $1.60. And then we go down again for another reaccumulation range as Bitcoin goes down into its reaccumulation. So here's Bitcoin, rise, crash, retrace, reaccumulation, sideways. Then it breaks out into a new all-time, basically the next bull run. Then that's when XRP can start. But that would take, again, a long time. So we'll see what happens. We don't have much time because, again, you have the stock market literally almost hitting its 4.236 Fibonacci extension. It looks like it's cooked. It looks like the stock market is nearing complete. So it's now or never. XRP needs to go. Like, it needs to break out, right? If it's not going to break out, then it's going to take at least another couple years, is what I'm saying. So my hope is that when Bitcoin has these, if Bitcoin's going to range, right, just like how it ranged down here, right? You have range 1, you have range 2, you have range 3. Just like here, you have range 1, range 2, range 3. As Bitcoin is in range 3, as it oscillates to the upside, that's when you can get a pump for XRP. As it oscillates to the downside, you get a pullback. As it goes back to the upside, you get another major run, right? So that's sort of the hope here. So hopefully that helped you out. Now, when you look at Bitcoin, look at this. The weekly chart on the 9 called the top. I mean, come on. This indicator is pretty cool. Now you could say, well, it didn't call the top here. No, it didn't, but it did go sideways for a bit. It's usually the second 9, the one that flips the count. So you have 1 9 and then you have another 9, right? So if we can get this 9, so either you have a 1 to 4 candle correction. So right now we're on candle 3. We come down, we back test the bull market support band, then we start heading back up. Now I don't know if we're going to break out. Regardless if we break out or just come back and retrace and then come back down. If I put up XRP, side by side here, there we go. XRP is the purple line. So if this is an A, B, C, and then we bottom out, right? And then as Bitcoin oscillates back to the upside, hopefully we get a big pump out of here. Then it oscillates back down, we get a pullback. Then it oscillates back up, then we get another big breakout, right? And then when finally Bitcoin makes a decision, right? Let's say Bitcoin is over with, and then we just start going down, then that could be the end of XRP for a while, right? Because it likes to pump up and go sideways for a while. But if Bitcoin breaks out of this range and starts heading higher, then we can see even higher prices potentially for XRP, right? So if I put this on regular here, there we go. So you could see some pretty big divergence right there. You can see XRP's down here, Bitcoin's up here. So we want to see it at least catch up, right? Which would put it at about that $1.30, $1.40 area. So either we get that or we get a bigger breakout. But I think if we're going to get a bigger breakout, I think Bitcoin needs to prove itself and go up another level. So we'll see what happens. I don't know. But this is just all interesting, right? And if you put it together here, you could see You have the contracting triangle, you have the rise, crash, retrace, reaccumulation, right? You're nearing potentially the apex right in here. So maybe it takes another year, maybe it takes another 2 years, right? But again, as Bitcoin's figuring itself out, so let's talk about that for just a minute. If it's going to take another, let's talk about worst case scenario. If it's going to take another 1 to 2 years or even 3 years, how would that look? Well, I've often thought that just like over here, right? You have a rise, crash, retrace, reaccumulation, and then you go sideways and then you break out. So same thing here. You have a rise, crash, retrace, and then you go down for reaccumulation, and then you go sideways, and then you break out. So the question becomes, what does XRP do if this occurs? And my thinking is, if XRP does that, or I'm sorry, Bitcoin does that, then to me, I think Bitcoin or XRP gets another pump to the upside, right? I think we got to get back up into here. So this is an ABC, right? We get back up into here, above $1, get everybody bullish, and then we sort of wane down again like this before we go up, just like Bitcoin. But instead of like having to come back down into reaccumulation, remember Bitcoin or XRP already has that reaccumulation phase. So, we have a rise, a crash, a retrace, a reaccumulation, right? Maybe we get a double retracement and then a double reaccumulation. That could happen. So, again, it's all speculation. I don't know what's going to happen, but it's interesting to think about because, again, you have the stock market topping out, but you also have crypto needing to catch up. And then what makes me even really bullish is when you see things like if you look at Solana, look how big it retraced, right? You had a rise, a crash, a retracement. The retracement was way up here. Now, if you look at THETA, we still have this big retracement to go. So THETA needs to catch up. The question becomes, what happens to XRP as the rest of the market catches up? That's my question. So one can only speculate, one can only hope. But at the end of the day, the market's going to do what it wants. And I'll be here to sort of hopefully navigate the best I can to give you my perspective on what I think. But is someone asked me worst case scenario? Well, worst case scenario, this is an AB or a WXY. So if I take all that off, it would look like that. So you have 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. And 3 can be pretty nasty. So if put it this way, basically it would come back down into this major support area. So I would say around that 14, 17, 21 cent area. Most likely between 17 and 21 cents, if that's going to be the worst case scenario. So, we're trending up, right? And then we have a counter trend to the downside. And then we can continue going back up. But nothing going to go up in a straight line, right? So we went up, now we're coming down, then continue back up, right? So if that's the case, then maybe we have another double bottom. And that would be interesting too. So here's your bottom here. You pump up, you come back down, then you create another bottom, a double bottom. And then that continues the price, right? And then all that is just a big reaccumulation area. So don't want to get too far ahead of myself. We'll just take it one day at a time, one day at a time. So zooming all the way back into the 4-hour chart. And if I pull up the RSI, you can start to see, you know, we're getting oversold. Let me actually go to the daily. Yeah, so we're almost into that oversold territory, not quite yet. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or 1, 2, all of this is 3, we get 4, and then we get 5. And we come down here and we get, hopefully maybe get that weekly 9, right? And then we go. Or even better, a monthly 9. I don't even know what the monthly, let's see, what's the monthly chart? It's very hard to get. Yeah, it's only on a 1. It's super hard to get anything. But check this out. We had a monthly 9 on XRP, and that sort of called the bottom, right? And then from there, we went up, all the way about 334 days of upside, right? With a lot of flat in between. But yeah, there hasn't been any 9s on here. Not a 9 sell, not a 9 buy, except just one. So maybe this 9 buy is the kickoff for the first wave, right? We're in that first wave, and now we're in the second wave, right? And then eventually we're going to get that big wave 3 that gets us the hell out of here. So you have a low, you have a higher low, and now hopefully we get even another higher low. That's what I really want to see, is another higher low come in. Because looking at it on linear scale, right? If I put a trend line here, somewhere right there, you see a low, higher low. Let's come down, A, B, C. Remember, we got a lot of wiggle room, maybe 42 cents area. Then we get another higher low and then continue rocking it to the upside. Or if Bitcoin wants to reverse now, or somewhere alongside the bull market support band, we can get you know, a pump. But from a monthly perspective, it looks like it needs more downside to go. You know, it doesn't look finished to me. You had this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, this diagonal, A, B, and it looks like we need to develop this C wave before we can get out of here. So there you go. I can speculate all day long. The question is, what's really going to happen? I have no idea. I hope that somewhere along those lines is right. But again, I can only speculate. There's so many, and that's why we have confluence with other things. We have the stock market, which is in a good position. Bitcoin's in a good position. XRP is at a good position because it has the rise, crash, retrace, reaccumulation, sideways, right? Maybe we go sideways a little longer before we blast off. Flip that back to log scale. Just like back over here. I mean, look how long we went sideways here. Rise, crash, retrace, reaccumulation. Look how long we went sideways in comparison to this wave and this wave. So I wonder if I can run the math on that and see the ratio of time between this and this, and to see how long that would get us out here too. I'll have to go and check that out. But if I'm anything, I would be watching that trend line right here. Let's just watch that trend line, and let's see if we can officially break out of this thing. Because if you look at it, it's a correction. We're in a correction. We have when you zoom all the way out, you have a base, you have an impulse. And all of this is just choppy corrective behavior, which is a good thing because it tells us the trend is up, not down, right? If we had an impulse to the downside and then we corrected to the upside, then that would tell me we have another big impulse coming. But we don't. We have an impulse to a massive impulse to the upside with a correction to the downside. And it's not even really down, it's sort of just flat in this big base or big triangle. Same thing here. So we're waiting for that big moment. And we'll see when that happens. It probably will happen when least expected. So anyways, guys, thank you so much for watching. If you can, leave a like, a subscribe, and I will catch you on the next one. Cheers.